for the one-on-ones, and your name was on it. And I've talked to everybody else on that list, and you're the only person I haven't had any kind of conversation with because I've been afraid.
My reputation precedes me.
Well, it's not even that. It's the fact that without you, Len, I wouldn't be a comic book geek.
Oh God, another one.
I'm sure you hear this all the time.
I actually do, and it's intimidating.
But Len, I want to shake your hand. Thank you.
You are very welcome.
Thank you, because you are the reason I am who I am.
If they ever arrest you, please don't tell them that.
The first comic book I ever read was X-Men #1.
Yes.
And then my sister was actually dating a guy who he saw I had a collection of the Origins of Marvel comics, and I had X-Men #1 in it. I read X-Men #1 I don't know how many times. And he's like, "Oh, you like X-Men? Here, I got something for you." And he handed me Giant Size #1. So I kind of got a little history lesson right there, you know. That was it. I never looked back, and so it always blew my mind. I'm like, Giant Size #1, who's this Len Wein guy? For some reason, I connected to writers right away. I was like, because I just love the craft. I myself wanted to be a writer when I was a kid. So it's like, wait, what happened to this Len Wein guy? Why isn't he writing anymore?
I was running the company. It was an accident.
So can we? Obviously, we're here to talk about Len's career, and if you guys have any questions, please stop and let me know. But Len, when did you realize that you were a writer? Was there a moment when you were like, hey, I think I might be able to do this for a living?
Yes and no, all at the same time. It's very strange. I became a comics fan when I was 7 years old. I was sick.
What was the first comic you read?
I think it was Batman. I'm almost sure because I'm a huge Batman.
Nice.
But I was in the hospital, and my dad, God rest him, brought me a huge stack of comic books. Back when they were only a dime each, so you could buy a huge stack of comic books. And I got hooked. I became a comic book fan from that point on. When fandom started getting organized by Julie Schwartz's letter columns back in the 60s, I became a member of a fan club called Tysos. Many of the members of whom are now ended going up to be professional writers.
Really?
Or people in the business.
Really?
I mean, myself, Marv Wolfman, Andy Yanchus became a colorist for some Marvel.
Wow.
Well, a couple of the other guys, too, over the way.
Wait,
Irene Vartanoff.
Wait, was this just when you say fandom, back then, you were just writing letters to each other? Or
Yeah, no, we all lived close enough that we could
really?
get together once every.
So you had almost like a club?
It was not like a club, it was a club.
Oh, really?
It was called Tysos, Tisos.
Really?
Which stood for the illegitimate sons of Superman. and in fact, it was named by Mark Hannafeld, who was one of our members.
Oh.
Mark later on went on to be the model for Abel, of Cain and Abel, and The House of Mystery, and became Joe Orlando's assistant editor for a while.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of the guys in our little fan club went on to be professionals of some sort or another.
Why do you think that was?
We were persistent little bastards.
Really?
Yeah, we were.
So was that the point then, where you were meeting with these guys? And
I told you not to do that.
Was that the point when you were like, all right, I think I can write comic books, sure. And
That's me, I'm sorry. I win. I know who this is. My person. Hello. I'm at my panel, I'm good, I'm in room
202C.
202C. 202C. 202 cow. Okay, cool.
202 cow, I like that. That's a good one.
First thing I thought of, pure set.
Your geek's not enough right there, man. I didn't even go to Colossus, I didn't think about that. So anyways,
So
yeah.
I became a comic book fan, joined comics fandom, met Marv Wolfman through one of Julie Schwartz's letter columns, and
Sorry, we're recording. So.
And then, no, I scared me. And we started doing fanzines together back in the early days of fanzines.
Really?
Did a lot of fan work. I was going to be an artist. In the 8th grade,
I never knew that about you.
in the 8th grade, I had an art class back when schools actually gave art classes. And I drew a picture of a shark, of all things. And my art teacher says, that's really good. You could be a professional artist. And I
Wow.
said, are you serious? He said, absolutely. I said, okay, I could be a comic book artist. And I became an arts major. I majored in art in high school and in college. Spent all my time learning how to draw, became a comic book artist. When Marv and I finally brought samples we had done together up to DC to try to get into the business, professionally, we went to see Dick Giordano. And Dick wasn't even in the day we went to show you how professional we were. We didn't make an appointment, we just showed up. Because we used to show up a lot as fans. They knew who we were. And Dick wasn't in. And so we stood around kind of going, no, what are we doing? And at that point, Carmine Infantino, who was editorial director, came back from lunch with Joe Orlando, who's one of their editors, and recognized us. Hey, what are you kids doing? Well, we wrote some samples to show to Mr. Giordano and see if we could get into the businesses of artists. And Carmine said, well, Dick's not in today, but if you want to show the stuff to my boy Joey here, if he likes you, you're in. So we sent the samples back with Joe. And he came out a half hour later, having looked them over, and said, well, the art, which is mostly what I had, not quite ready. It's got potential, but it's not there yet. But I like the writing, which is mostly what Marv had done.
Really?
If you guys want to submit stories to House of Mystery, which is the book I had just started, I'd love to see them. And at that point, I was a writer. I started submitting story ideas, and one of the stories in the first batch I submitted, Joe accepted, and I stuck with that from that point on.
I mean, don't you wish it was that easy now?
It's impossible. You really can't.
You can't just walk in to DC Comics at this point and be like, yeah, I want to talk to Jeff Johns.
Yeah. Well, mostly he's out here, so it's easy.
Well, yeah, well.
But the difference, too, is the world has become so litigious that you can't submit. DC, which used to invite submissions, now what she says, if you read the indicia, that says no unsolicited submissions are accepted.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
It's incredible. So what was the book that you and Marv were, do you remember the book that you and Marv were doing?
The first thing, we did a couple of separate short stories which came out later. But the first published thing we did for, I guess it was Dick actually, not Joe. It was an issue of Teen Titans.
Oh, really?
The original run, issue 18.
Wow.
People bring that to me occasionally.
You
feel it creak when you look at it.
So, you rose through the ranks pretty quickly.
I did. I killed a lot of people.
Yeah, I was going to say, so there's a trail of dead bodies to where you got.
Well, no one looked for them.
I mean, and what was it like back then? Was it just like
was
you
a
were
lot
just
less.
sitting at a typewriter all day long and just like, oh, what do you need? I got it, kind of thing?
There was a little of that. DC.
Were you actually in the offices at that point?
Well, they had a writer's room.
They did?
So
Who was in the writer's room with you?
Jerry Conway, Marv.
Wow.
A lot of guys like that.
But that just blows me away. What did you guys do? Just like, hey, I got this problem with Superman. What do you think, Jerry?
Yeah, sometimes.
Really?
Well, although in the case of Superman or anything that Julie Schwartz edited, you did it with him because Julie loved being part of the process.
Yeah. What was Julie like? I met him at a convention one time, and I felt like I was hanging out with my grandpa. Just like I was really young at the time, but he was just like that guy was just like, just tapping me on the arm and like wanted to tell you crazy jokes and stuff and tell you stories.
Without Julie Schwartz, we'd all be somewhere else.
We wouldn't have the Silver Age.
We wouldn't have an industry, I don't think, anymore.
Yeah.
Julie Schwartz not only helped found comics fandom, because he made it a point in his leather columns to print the names and addresses, again, less litigious times, of everybody, so we could get in touch with one another.
Yeah.
He and Morton Weisman were essentially 25 years earlier, the me and Marv of the beginning ages of science fiction fandom.
Yeah.
They had formed the first science fiction club. They formed the first science fiction fanzine. They were fans who evolved into editors and people who became, Julie Schwartz was Ray Bradbury's first agent. Things like that.
I never knew that.
Amazing. Oh yeah, all these things. So Julie was really, but in the office, Julie had a reputation for being one tough-ass SOB. He
Really?
was a tough guy. And he had an unconscious habit of walking down the hall with his hands in his pocket, shaking the change in his pocket. Didn't realize
Really?
he was doing it. But it was like bellowing the cat. People heard the change rattling, and they all went their offices. Okay,
They're like, Julie's on the warpath.
but Julie knew me and Marv and others from our fanzine work. And when I was still in the very early days of my freelance ship, trying to sell things to the, he shared an office at that point in time with Nelson Bridwell, the late wonderful Nelson Bridwell.
Mm-hmm.
And I was there, I had an appointment, I learned to make appointments. I had an appointment with Nelson to try to sell him some like either Jimmy Olsen or Lois Lane stories back when they all had their own books.
Mm-hmm.
It was just work. And Nelson got called away to some other meeting, and I was sitting in his guest chair. You know, that was the office. A desk on this side, a desk on this side, editor's chair, guest chair, guest chair.
Wow.
And Julie was not with me. He was sharing the office with Nelson at that point. And I'm sitting there by myself, waiting for Nelson to come back, and suddenly Julie comes storming into it and sees me and recognizes me. You, what the hell are you doing here? I'm here to try to sell some stories to Mr. Bridwell. And he literally grabbed me by the scruff of my collar, pulled me out of Nelson's chair, dragged me across the room, dumped me in his guest chair, and says, "The hell you are! You're writing The Flash." I'm what? You're writing The Flash. Wait, let's try it again. I'm what? You're writing The Flash. You couldn't possibly do a worse job than that SOB I just fired. So you're writing The Flash.
And that's how it all began.
That's how I started working for Julie.